Alrighty, guys, welcome to Something About Tabletop. This is going to be an online discussion between myself
The illustrious hobo.
and it's going to be on Fate, namely Fate Core, which is a new system that we've been experimenting with. Mind you, it's not a new system by any means, actually. I don't know when exactly it was made, but we'll get Hobo, the researcher, there just to check that up for us right now. But,
Finally looked up right now. I know it's fairly old.
yeah, I mean, Fudge Dice has been around for a while, but I think at least Fate Core or Fate Accelerator is relatively new. Anyway, either way, I'll just give a little bit of an explanation of what exactly Fate is before we jump into the discussions of our experiences with it. Because, disclaimer, this isn't a review per se, this is like first impressions of what Fate is and what we like about it and what we don't. So nothing is final, obviously, here. Anyway, so Fate is a really simple system using a 40... Well, it's a 4 fudge dice system, but we've just been using 4d6. So what fudge dice are is that 2 sides have pluses, 2 sides have nothing on them, 2 sides have negatives. So this means for, say, a d6, 1s and 2s are minuses, 3s and 4s are nothing, 5s and 6s are pluses. And you have, say, a corresponding skill, and you add that to your total. So say if I roll 46, I get 3 6s and I get a 1. So that is a total of plus 2. And if my skill is, say, 3 in this thing, I get a 5. And that's Fate. And it's that simple. Yeah. Obviously.
And the threshold tests are on the ladder. 2 being poor. Well, sorry, minus 2 being poor. Being terrible. Minus 1 being poor. 0 being mediocre. 1 being average. Plus 2 being fair. Plus 3 good. Plus 4 great. Plus 5 superb. Plus 6 excellent. Plus 7 legendary. Sorry, epic. And then 8 and above is legendary. So.
Yeah,
you get the idea.
You can make up more descriptors, I guess, if you wanted to.
Rather than just
super,
like, how is
ultra, mega god, mega.
There should just be one that's like fucking, like when you hit 10 and above, it should just say MA. That's all it should say. Or just bullshit.
Just
but anyway,
what?
Well, when you get like plus above like plus 10, it should just say bullshit / MA.
Yeah, 100%.
So anyway, I looked it up. This is apparently the very first edition of it. Of the offshoot of the fudge dice system was in 2003.
Oh wow, okay, so it's now 12 years old. Jesus. Okay, so it's not that.
It's 4th edition now, and it got the 4th edition. It got the 4th edition actually only got published because of crowdsourcing on Kickstarter in 2013.
Okay, so yeah, it is relatively new then. The 2000, because I remember someone saying on a chat in the one shot group, saying that it was relatively newish and it was crowdfunded, as most RPGs are these days, and that's kind of good because people can do what they want, and systems like this can come to fruition, and I really enjoy the system. Big thing about it is, of course, the aspects, which we also didn't overly describe. So what the aspects are is that they are literal sentences about your character. The main is the prime aspect, which is like if I'm playing a Vietnam veteran who doesn't give a shit, that's literally what it is. I just write that. And the trouble is something that he has a problem with. Like, say, if he's an alcoholic, I could put
flashbacks.
or flashbacks, PTSD, I never forget the war, that kind of shit. And then his other aspects could be the best shot in his squad, and then another aspect could be never gives up, and then another one could be stubborn as hell, which is the same as never gives up, but nonetheless. And yeah, that's the aspects. Aspects are used. You spend fate points, and you can either reroll or give a +2. I mean, usually it's for a +2, but some systems do reroll, some offshoots of fate. Stuff like that. It's a super sweet system though, because as you can tell, it's not exactly system specific.
Oh, it's versatile. That's the simple notion of it. You can actually adapt it to whatever you need it to be.
Yeah, and it's definitely a very GM discretion one too, which can have its negatives, which we'll definitely pull up later. If you I mean, that's every system though. If you got a crappy DM, you're gonna have a bad time. But I mean, this is exacerbated even further with Fate because of how much decision making the GM has to do. Like, you can sometimes because you can only use aspects that are relevant to the situation. So if your person is a crack shot and you're like, oh, I try to drive a car with my fucking feet, and then you try to pull from the aspect, I'm a crack shot, the DM looks at you and goes, oh, fuck off. You're not getting that.
Unless you can think of some really good bullshit, but in that scenario, it better be some damn good bullshit.
Yeah. But, I mean, Fate has been known as the system of bullshit. It's all about bullshitting everything and convincing the GM to lay you to get that +2 or a reroll to your check. And usually it works. But Fate as well, how it works, also, the DM can compel an aspect. So what this means is that, say, if you've got an aspect of, I love murdering everyone for no reason, I could midway through the game and go, mate, I'm going to give you a fate, and you have to murder everyone in this room for no reason. And I give them the fate. If they don't want to murder everyone in the room for no reason, they have to give me a fate instead. So they effectively lose one. And that is a lot of fun, I can tell you right now.
It's a lot of fun. Also, fate points, really valuable.
Yeah, you start with 3. I mean, you can start with more depending on the game, and they refresh every game as well, whatever the refresh rate may be. And you also gain fates throughout the game by the DM exploiting your weaknesses. So if your character's addicted to alcohol, he's going to drink a lot if you want to get fate points. If your character's like a crazy sex offender, he might have to do some raping. Mind you, not that I'm a fan of rape in my games, but you know what I mean.
Say that we're just talking about extremes here.
Yeah, no, that's generally how
usually
I feel when I'm going off the top of my head. But yeah, troubles usually are. Basically, I just find Fate is a great way to make a roundabout character, any system, and you can just play. But I guess we'll go with Hobo. What games have you played in? Even though I know what games you played in, but just,
you know exactly what games I've played in. I've played in. Well, funny enough, both of them were yours. But there were 2 very different types. One of which, of course, was the very first one, a more modern sort of Cthulhu game, where of course I played the fighter, and many people who actually have played Call of Cthulhu here will be just sighing, and then the next question usually comes is, how many of your teammates did you kill? But no. The second one would be a more fantasy one, once again showing the sort of versatility of how things are. Very, very different concepts, but same system. Works wonderfully.
Well, yeah. Well, technically, that was Bluey's game, the fantasy one. That was not my game. So plug to Bluey there, actually running a game. I mean, usually I'm stuck in our group to do that. But yeah, Fate has definitely shown its versatility. It's worked both ways. And I'm even running that off of a module known as Nocturnum, which is I saw Fantastic Dimensions on YouTube doing, and I thought it was really cool. And just so you guys know, the reason the fight didn't kill everyone because there was no mind controlling yet.
What was that?
There's no mind controlling yet. That's why you didn't kill everyone.
Okay. At least it fire, and I was just still like, I don't remember fire murdering everyone. Seems like something I wouldn't miss.
There was a fire?
No, but I did do some really stupid stuff, and how I'm alive is an amusement and an amazement to me.
Bad rolls.
Oh yeah, bad rolls by a werewolf and good rolls by me. Not many people survive attempting to grapple a werewolf, still let the rest of the party escape.
Yeah. I think he succeeded. No, you succeeded, but with a minus, I think, or something like that. Because you got scratched, didn't you? Yeah, you did. Yeah,
that was the first one. I dodged, but I took some physical boxes, but I didn't actually. It wasn't like the other person. It was kind of just a major consequence. You need surgery, or you're gonna die.
Yeah, getting your arms partially ripped off, or mostly ripped off.
Like most of your rib cage impacted.
Yeah, well, we had a few deaths there from the werewolf, but this is, of course, a Call of Cthulhu game we're talking about. But yeah, I just love how I could pick up a module and then look at it. I mean, I'm a relatively experienced GM, so I can easily convert it in my head, but it wasn't that hard to, and I liked that I could use something and put it with Fate. And I mean, Fate isn't a combat system. The system's super simplistic, and I've even brought over things from other combat systems that we're used to use as well. Just because, at least for us, we're used to much crunchier systems. Shadowrun!
Don't know what you're talking about.
Shadowrun? What?
Yeah, no such thing. Excuse me while I get out the calculator of my abacus to figure out this Karmagen character.
Yeah, no shit. Actually, Carmagen's insane, but we're not going to be talking about that. I think we did kind of cover that in Run Faster First Impressions that Bluey and I did a while back.
Gotta run faster.
Fun fast. But yeah, what do you think, apart from all this little rambling that we did, I mean, what do you think are at least the major advantages to you in your eyes of Fate? And I guess the major disadvantages to a Fate? And where do you think Fate can go? And do you enjoy it? Do you think it's something you can do as a campaign?
I really enjoy Fate. It's a lot of fun. It brings me a lot closer to the roots of what I'm used to doing, which is freeform. I really like how you can define your own sort of set of skills, and basically through your own, so long as you can prove your logic or your way of thinking, everything is pretty much valid. You get to see a lot more character that you usually wouldn't see in systems, because of course crunch doesn't usually allow for those sorts of ideas. I mean, a lot of it in what I've played tends to be more mundane, but only because it's Call of Cthulhu and we're not branching out into the really over the top there craziness sort of. Well, Cthulhu gets crazier the further down the line you go, but in terms of, I guess, weaknesses of the system, I guess it's that it can be, for someone who's used to choice or has Fate's really good for people who have never played any tabletop before.
100%.
And anyone who has played tabletop, it's really difficult because you're kind of used to this rigidness of a system, no matter like how free your system usually is, and it kind of makes it hard to, I guess, assign what would normally be very abstract concepts to I guess, your bonuses.
Yeah, and I guess pulling from them as well, that's something I've noticed just a few players. I mean, you definitely have trouble creating aspects. Because usually for me, I like flowery sentences. They don't have to be, there can be a word, but I think it's cooler when it's like, curiosity kills the cat. Needs more cowbell was a silly one that came up. But as long as you can put across in a sentence what exactly you're going for, it's good. And also, it means as well, if you're, say, you can pull from it easier. Because if you can say it in a sentence, then your character can say it in the sentence. And if you can apply it to a situation, then it like makes so much more sense. Like if you've got a talky aspect, which could be like, hear my name and roar. Like, hear my name and cower, sorry. And you say that in a sentence, the GM's gonna be like, yeah, you can use your aspect, hear my name and cower. Because, yeah. Because you just said it.
Yeah, but with some of the other stuff, it becomes a bit more, again, difficult because you're dealing with abstract concepts and attempting to tie several abstract concepts together. Like stunts isn't that difficult because stunts are basically, anyone who's played Shadowrun, it's just your specialization. That's really all it is. But granted, that it doesn't have to be, because stunts can, as well, abstract concept, they can literally be anything within the limitations of what the GM's willing to give you.
Yeah, like stunts, the stunts that I've mainly given you guys is a way to use a skill in another way and a specialization. But you can use stunts like once-off abilities, like if you're doing magic, you could make people make their magic in their stunts. Like quite recently with Bluey's game, he made astral perception in his fantasy universe a stunt. You needed a stunt to use it, which is completely fine. Everything is GM's discretion, which is part of my main. I mean, it's a positive and a negative, because you got a really good GM, he can move past the rules, because there's pretty much none. You know, like in D&D, some GMs, like myself included for the longest time, got caught up in the rules, and I still do in Shadowrun because the rules are a big part of the system. So allowing things and stuff like that, you know, it's generally on the back foot for more of a simulation of the game itself, because I GM simulationist most of the time.
Yeah, no, that's it's definitely a thing. Stunts are probably one of the more interesting things to deal with when dealing with Fate, because you can get very creative with that sort of section. I mean, it's very easy to be boring and mundane, because if you're playing someone who's fighting orientated like my character was, granted I never used my stunt for it, it's easier to, I guess, choose a specific weapon, and then you become Well, like shooting's a great example, and then choosing a type of gun for it. And then,
Yeah.
if that's your main focus, then suddenly you get a huge bonus to it. But at the same time, that's a very simplistic, and it almost feels wasteful sometimes with what kind of cool stuff you can do. Like a lot of the other characters who tend to not have any really sort of talkative or social skills tend to take really interesting stunts which allow them to use some of their knowledge skills in place. So if they maybe have to convince people by showing that they know what they're talking about, sort of thing. So it's a really interesting way of exploring and finding different uses for these sort of skills that are outside of their normal application.
Yeah, like I saw Bluey had his character use his willpower for rapport. His character was so fucking stubborn, he won arguments based on just not moving and being just like, no, 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 no. And that makes sense. Like, you can justify a lot of things in Fate. And I love that. And it's a part of the system. And yeah. Also, most of the people that I've been teaching Fate, they haven't even looked at the book. You can just teach people the Fate system by word of mouth. I mean, there's a few rules going on in the back that even me, I wasn't even using with the system for a while, because I just read it a bit and then gone, you know what, I can run this, fill in the blanks with bullshit, and it should be alright. And it was. Now I've learnt the system a little bit more through watching actual plays and stuff, particularly Yo DMs on YouTube. Check them out. But yeah, I mean, other than that, I mean, my main positives for Fate, I guess I'll go into that because I've kind of said my negatives already, which, yeah. My main positives for Fate is just simply how much you can do with it, and generally how immersed you feel because you are pulling from sentences to do things, and also your success rate is literally based on a word. Because there's something that came up quite recently. It was like Bluey was like, "What would be the DC of this, Tom?" And I'm like, "Well, how good would someone have to be to do that?" And he'd be like, "Well, they'd have to be pretty, they'd have to be pretty good." I'd be like, "Well, good then." And he's like, "Oh yeah." Oh, well, yeah, that's right. And it's like, oh. And it's like, I remember we were doing characters.
What's the DC for theoretical physics?
That is true. I mean, recently we were doing something where we were kind of basing characters off ourselves. It was maybe a couple of weeks ago. And it came up where it was like, shit, I don't know where to put things. And I'm like, well, think of it this way. What do you average at? And then everyone was able to spew it out instantly. Because what am I average at? That's pretty easy to know what you're average at, to be honest. The hardest ones was finding what you were great at, because most people are fairly, what's the word? Not full
Is
of
being
themselves.
sassy an option?
Yes. What? You could definitely
What?
have an aspect of being sassy, but I don't know what we're talking about.
Fucking +4 for sarcasm.
That would be more. Well, sarcasm can't really be a skill. That's more of an aspect, maybe even a negative aspect. Trouble. And that's something also cool that you can do. Like, most people use their aspects outside of their trouble to, like, portray good things, but you can have them all negative if you wanted. But portray a character. A good rule of thumb is something for combat, something for talking, and then something to define your character's personality more outside of his trouble and his prime aspect. And it generally goes pretty well. Alrighty, guys. Yeah, that's pretty much all we really have to say about Fate at the moment. It's a really super cool system, and yeah, hope to see you next time on our videos, or I guess do whatever you want, like, comment, subscribe, I don't care. Hope you enjoyed it. I may even have some actual play Fate up sometime in the future, so see you later.